Today's episode, we're talking all about growth. Growth with a growth fractional CMO called Lucy Woolfenden. Lucy worked in London for numerous years. She used to work for Skype.
So Skype was really my first into the tech world.
So she's got some fascinating insight into what it's like to grow a brand, both in fintech and in tech in general.
But really has to be about how are we going to get you from stage B to stage C.
So if you want to experience how to do B2B marketing in an interesting way to grow a brand, this is a conversation for you. Lucy also shares some fascinating mistakes, one of which where she sent an invite to the wrong person.
And my client just sends me a photo going, uh-oh.
And a typo that ended up on a 96-sheet advert.
That we put Nick's mouse into the terms and conditions and see if he actually read it. But then obviously running around like headless chickens, completely forgot, and it actually went to print like that.
So you can sit back, relax and enjoy Lucy's pain and Lucy's expertise as she explains what it's like to be a growth marketer. Enjoy. Lucy Woolfenden, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So you've had an interesting career. I was looking through all the various places that you've worked. Where would you say you've learned the most, working for yourself or working in-house?
Oh, I think probably there's always different experiences in different places, right? But I think Skype was really sort of my baptism of fire, where really it was the first time I got in-house. So it's very different than working. When you're working in advertising, you're working on a small part of that role to suddenly everything. And we really I went in actually as an agency within Skype on a special project, which is a whole nother story, but ended up running campaigns, and we launched Skype for mobile, and we did everything. So we had in a really interesting position where we had 300 million users, but really wanted to get as many as possible onto the mobile app. So we did it all through experience and bringing what they loved closer to them. So we got to do it so I'd never really done partnerships before, and suddenly I was partnering with like Disney and the White House and ESPN, learning so much more about broadcast than I ever had learned before. So it was just, every project was sort of a very steep learning curve for me, but just surrounded by a super smart team, and that, you know, they'd already been bought for 8 billion or something, but they were still very much in that mindset of startup, like, let's just go do it. And if it works, amazing. Let's not sit around and think too much. And I absolutely loved that and thrived in that environment.
And that kind of sort of tech scale up type company, is that something you've always been attracted to? Because I saw you've also done work with Starling Bank and a few other of those kind of really, challenger tech brands that are in that kind of period of steep growth.
Yeah, so I started off in advertising. So I started off working for Guinness when I was a student, which mainly was so that I could get free alcohol and get paid more than I did in my pub job. But that really introduced me to advertising. They showed us how to make, do you remember the horses galloping over the waves?
Yeah, in the waves, yeah.
Did you? Yeah, they as part of our training, the ad agency at the time came and showed us how they made it, and it was the first time I'd ever seen an ad being created. I was like, oh, I want to be part of this. This is so exciting. So rather than going travelling after uni, I went straight down to London, got myself into advertising, and spent the first sort of 8 years in advertising agencies. So Skype was really my first into the tech world. And I was there for, I think, about 4 years. I went off on mat leave. At that point, Microsoft sucked Skype into the bigger mothership. So everyone else got made redundant. Somehow I didn't, because I was on mat leave. But I would end up doing a very different job, going in and saying you're Skype, and really showing people the world versus going in and talking about getting Word documents into Marvel films was just very different, and also just much slower. So I then stepped out of that and into into smaller startup tech. I really wanted to get back to finding that, startup attitude of let's just try, let's just go for it.
Skype went from, because Skype was like a cool, like personal peer-to-peer platform.
So sad.
Everybody had. We used to use it in the office before it was like widely used, and then it became widely used. And then there was Skype for Business that came out, and then Skype for Business got killed off, and Skype's now been killed off, hasn't it? Because it became essentially Teams, which is where it got amalgamated into Teams, didn't it? Which was interesting as well.
Well, it got bought by Microsoft, really, for its 300 billion users to on-ramp them onto Microsoft Office. That didn't really work because they're a completely different set of users. So what they then did was take the technology and pull it into Microsoft Office. And we did the launch of video messaging when the first time people ever tried to record a video on their mobile and send it to people, and trying to get people. We used to do group chats with up and coming bands and athletes, and because people weren't used to doing group chats online. So it was really it was so exciting. It's so sad to see a brand that was so loved. And, you could have wherever I was traveling for it, there would always be somebody that would come up to me and talk to me about an emotional reason. It connected families at dinner time in different parts of the world. It was the only way you could really, if you lived in a different part of the world to your family, talk for free and still see them and still have those relationships. And so, it really got sucked into a quite boring corporate machine. And others, just from a technology point of view, it had basically it was a different product for every platform. Yeah. Whereas then things like Google Meet came and it was just one product, and it was so much easier to make everything work and make changes. And I just able to.
With Skype, I remember these, which I thought would have become massive, which was which still isn't a thing, right? This still isn't a thing, and I can't believe this isn't a thing. So if it is a thing, is Skype TVs. So it makes no sense to me that you've got like a Samsung TV. Everyone's got one on the wall now, and still it doesn't have a little webcam in it, and you can't do peer-to-peer video because everybody does it through their laptops, and that's become more since the pandemic. Everybody now uses video. I remember trying to use Teams at the beginning of the and we were all like, what is Teams? Because we use Skype, and then we were trying to figure out how to but I remember when Skype launched, Skype with TV on Skype on TVs, and I thought that is going to fly because everyone is going to want. That's the future, right? You watch sci-fi and they're talking to their TVs. Their TVs are, like you say, so you can speak to someone in Australia. That makes 100%, sense to me. But it's never happened, does it? It never happened.
No. I mean, it's such a smart product and partnership teams. They did all the partnerships to get it across Samsung and all the other big TV producers. We did, so I will start banging on about Skype eventually, but we did a partnership with Back to the Future, because Back to the Future actually in the original film basically showed Skype, what became Skype. So when they had their anniversary, we did a whole partnership with them because it was so classic. Because 20 years ago, they taught us about, wouldn't it be crazy if you could do this? And actually, that's what happened. So yeah, a lot of nostalgia with that brand, I think.
Yeah, cool.
A really cool brand at the time, not anymore.
Yeah, not so much now.
Do you remember that? Do you remember during COVID and Saturday Night Live did that skit with the Skype marketing team just going, I know, we've got great ideas. Oh no, well, we could just let everybody else do it instead.
Yeah. Crazy how, like I was talking to someone yesterday, I was having a chat with somebody on the phone, and it was like, do you remember conference calls? What happened to them? Conference calls where with this awkward silence, like you don't get it. Everyone's just binned off conference call. The conference phone is dead, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one phone. There's like the big unit in the middle of the boardroom table and everyone's shouting to it because no one thought they could be heard.
Legs, trying like a spider thing, and literally the pandemic killed it.
I think when we're clearing out,
killed the conference phone, didn't it? I
think I found one of them in our cupboard actually yesterday, Chris, when we were doing an office clear out. Yeah,
them either, or they weren't. You probably can get one from off eBay now.
So Lucy, you now you then kind of went on to found the Scale Up Collective, didn't you? So you're obviously working with massive tech companies, fast growth companies. talk to us about the kind of the leap to then doing it on your own, and what, you know, what I found quite interesting was that you now sort of focus on, and you talk about turning messy growth into focused, repeatable momentum. And I'd love to dive in a minute into this kind of, you know, is there a kind of a methodology for growth for, you know, well, B2B companies, tech companies looking to kind of take the next step up?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to had some learnings from some places, then went to Starling Bank, launched there, and went to Yolt. And Yolt was a money app, and it was funded by ING. So we had the joy of only having one investor, but also being able to passport through their banking license. It was all very wonderful. We got to, I think we got to about 1 million users in 3 markets. And then we'd also packaged at the back end and started selling that as B2B tech back to financial institutions. And really got to that stage where I like sorting out the mess. I like coming in at the point that there is a product, but there's no really clear route of how they're going to grow. And that's the bit I find exciting, not sitting there thinking about how to get that next sort of 10% growth or how to polish a few things and make it a little bit better. So really wanted to go back. And also, I was having my second child. I wanted to also stop traveling and have a bit more control, which is a joke really, isn't it? Because you don't have any control when you run your own business. You just think you do.
Or when you've got children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I started with was, as what I thought I wanted to do was be a company of one. I did the course. I read that book, all wonderful, and I got sort of 4 clients just as fractionals, so really early stage, mainly fintech. And that was January 2020. And then obviously March 2020, we went into lockdown. So then I had a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And everybody's like money freezing, everything going on. So carried on working obviously through that period. Some clients obviously had to leave. And because of that, I set up what was really a marketing accelerator for founders, where they still needed, because they were in that quandary where they still needed the growth they still needed funding, but they needed growth to prove the funding, whereas before they were getting the funding to be able to do the growth. Right. So really it was, let's just make it as easy as possible, running small accelerator programs, so 3 months at a time. And it started quite organically, and we went on for about 2 years doing it. And at the same time, really working on that insights and strategy piece for clients and working as more of a mentor to groups. And then it got to, I think, year 2, and I realised that it's actually really hard to do it by yourself, because everything has to be done by you, and you can't go on holiday or have any time. So, and at that stage, thankfully, we were coming out of COVID and the business was growing. So managed to start building. And one of the points that, and you touched on this before, is actually being able to do insights. When you're in a big company with, Skype, Yolt, Starling Bank, we all had good budgets. We all had BI teams and research budgets. But when you're very early stage, you still need those insights. And a CMO can do it well, but a researcher does it just to a very different standard and can pull out those insights that mean the difference between doing quite well to hockey stick growth, in my opinion. So that's really where we started to grow, was first of all, brought on Ness, who's another CMO, who was actually a client of mine previously, but I didn't steal her. It was just all serendipity. Legal reasons, yeah. And then Anna, who was our head of research and insights, and really grew that part of the business so that everything we do is based on insights, and we're really embedding it into ongoing strategies, as well as that initial, let's properly define your ICP, let's define your market, let's define positioning and what those growth levers are. And on methodology, I can go into that into more detail if you like, but it really is deeply understanding customer and market first, which a lot of people are, looking at that through understanding what they already know, then qual, and then refining it and prioritizing that through quant research, which now was a lot of surveys and a lot of that. Now is a lot of scraping of conversations and reviews, forums and communities to really get that depth and prioritization of message. Then we can look at what the 3 to 4 growth levers are, because what we find when we go into marketing teams at this stage is there's often a lot of messiness, Let's just throw everything at the wall, the entrepreneurial CEO is coming in with a different idea each week. The junior marketing team are going, isn't this great? Okay, good, we were only just doing that one from last week, but we'll try this one now. They've got, a plethora of different ICPs of different audience groups they're targeting, a plethora of different products they're supposed to be targeting, very little budget. And what we need to do is be able to come and just prioritize all of that and be really specific about what we believe with insight-based are being really objective, can work, and where they should focus, and clearing that space so they can actually do things well. We then come in as that fractional team. So we work within that business. So as well as a fractional CMO, there'll be a team that supports that fitting around the skills and people that are already part of that business, until the point that, we've obviously got successful with them and they've grown, and then we can say thank you very much. We can replace ourselves with a full-time team because they've got the revenue, but they also know who they need to hire, and we can step away. So that's really sort of the life cycle and the process that we follow at Scale Up.
So I think people will be listening to this. Some of our listeners will be thinking that we're in this kind of messy early stage, huge potential for growth, but we don't really know where to start. So let's dive into some of these stages. By the way, is this the discover, define, design, deliver model? Because I love a model, and that really caught my attention. So on the kind of discover stage, and let's talk about kind of insights and things. So imagine you're a fintech company or even a general B2B company. You've got an abundance of data. Where do we need to start with insights? I mean, there's a danger in sort of looking everywhere and spreading yourself too thin and drowning in numbers, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. We use jobs to be done as a really clear framework to really help think about, what are the customer needs? What are the triggers that are going to make it work? What are the push and pull factors? So externally, what's happening? What is it about your product that's going to answer those problems? What is it that's stopping people? So it's often inertia or confusion. How are you getting over those? And part of those triggers are really, what's going to make them buy it now, which is definitely from a B2B tech problem at the moment of you can't be that vitamin, you've got to be the painkiller, because people aren't going to just buy, people aren't spending money willy-nilly, are they? They're thinking about it. They've got to really prove to the business there's an ROI for that other tool, that other service. And that's really what we're trying to define from that. We also use, so going back to what they should do first, is to start talking to their customers and asking them about their behaviour, what they did before they used that product, what they're doing now, how they found it, what were the problems they were looking at trying to solve, what's made the difference to their lives. Like, even if it's B2B, it's, we all still love our tools that make our lives better or make us look better or, save us time each week, whatever that is, let's try and find it. And then we use blue ocean strategy. So really what we're looking at is, what is that core differentiator? And everybody looks at differentiators in different ways. But the way we like to use it is blue ocean. And that's really looking at, what is it that your customer needs? And then how do other alternatives solve those needs? And when you map all that, you can see, okay, there is that blue ocean part. This is a part you can own because no one else is doing it well. And that's really where we can then start to pull apart from the crowd. Because a lot of B2Bs at the moment, they're either going against big tech or they're going against own building in-house. And actually both of them are really tough. And you're never going to be, if you're a startup, you're never going to beat Microsoft or Apple in terms of toolkit, but you might beat them in the way that you're connecting with that particular ICP. You might beat them in the way you speak to them and the way you can relate to them. And the same with building in-house.
Do you think that a lot of because B2B marketing, a lot of the communication, why do people speak in such corporate, unique just because you work in a business. They don't talk person to person. So I'm assuming that you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we do it in a geeky way, but we create a voice of the customer database, and that really is so that everything you're doing, you're speaking in the language that they're going to use when they talk to you, when they're talking about it, because that's one of the ways that you can relate. I totally agree. It's like, let's entertain people and make people laugh. Like we all need to laugh at work. It's really understanding, and you can't do that if you're trying to be. The problem I see a lot is when somebody's trying to be something to everyone. You can't add humour or a bit of a any depth to that, because you're trying to please everybody, and no humour, unless it's really, really dull dad jokes, doesn't please everybody. It's got to be like, let's really deeply understand who I'm targeting, and therefore how can we connect with them and how can we relate to them, and then we can understand that if it is sense of humour, what their sense of humour is, or what they will connect with. But yeah, it's also, I was talking about this earlier, but like really boring colours, it's either monochrome, black and white, very simple and peeled back, or it's navy. Like financial services,
blue.
Blue.
Is that the cliches? Is that the sector cliches that everyone? Yeah. Who's nailing it then? Who do you see kind of in the broader market, in B2B, in fintech or tech, that's just, and I love that idea of kind of creativity and personality within your niche. And Chris is absolutely right, and you're absolutely right on that. That's what's going to connect with people. Why should you default to boring? And so anyway, my point was, who's nailing it as far as you see in the market at the moment?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm trying to think of an answer of who's made me laugh lately.
Especially
I think the people that aren't using blue.
So just by not using blue, you're immediately
just by not using blue,
head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is there's such a blanket of content out there. Nobody's got a problem with creating stuff anymore. It's just the quality of stuff and the relevancy of things. So the people that are doing well aren't just going, yeah, let's just make it all work. People are going, right, okay, what specifically does that person need to make their life better? And that's who I think's nailing it. I'm going to think of some good brand answers there and come back to you on.
We'll include them in the show notes when we go live.
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to name a corporate brand that is, because I think in the consumer world, I think that Ricky Gervais's Dutch Barn down in the underground, obviously because of his one-liners and he's even being criticised, but his are funny. You're about to get on a tube to a job that you hate, stuff like that. All little cute. And then there's lots of consumer brands that do highly entertaining, funny content. I'm thinking Yorkshire Tea. There's tons. There's absolutely tons. But some would argue that there's not as many as there used to be, which they're all nostalgic about it. But B2B, I often look at the B2B world and I'm like, there's some brilliant marketers working in, marketeers everywhere in B2B. But I do think that we all get pulled into, let's go blue, let's go corporate spiel, let's talk about our benefits and features, and it's like trying to not talk back to the individual who's experiencing that. And maybe we should all have a comedian at the end of our content, that looking at the problem that you're solving and making it funny to people. You know what I mean? Well, what do you do with Skype, for instance?
Yeah, that was all about entertainment. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think people are so worried about offending somebody, and I'm not saying you should go out and offend anyone, but you need to stand for something. You need to be funny for that audience, and then that audience gives you those guardrails for how you can do that. But it is definitely, it's harder and harder, I think, to prove why you should do it. I think what we're going to see this year, because I think brands are just coming on to the fact that they need a strong brand, they need to stand out. We've seen the uptake in understanding the value of brand has gone up. And I think that's because they're just not cutting through. You used to be able to spend your way out of it, didn't you? Just throw loads of money at something and it'll be better. And that just isn't working anymore. So they need to work out how to do. So I hope this is part of that of, right, you need an opinion. You need to have a place that you can stand up and be recognised, to stand out from this sort of melee of boring wallpaper that's out there. And that is the next stage. So I'm hoping that we start to see more.
I like it. A hot take for 2026. We like a hot take on this show.
Be wallpaper.
Yeah, we need less of it. Yeah, no one's buying it. I think what we're seeing is that there is just a complete overwhelm of everything, and so in the way that people used to go to the internet to escape real life, we're now going back to real life to escape our online world and our phones. And so we're seeing more and more events happening and meetups in real life, and community is back to community. Do you remember a couple of years ago, community was a buzzword and everybody would want to build a community? So we got lots of phone calls like, we need to build a community. Who for? We're not sure yet, but we've been told we need one by our investors. And now I think we're looking back, and when they are needing to build that community, because it is that relationship building that's going to get people to keep you top of mind, and when they're ready, they will buy.
I think you're so right. I've just been with a client in the edtech sector, and they historically have attended a big edtech trade show every year, and they were saying this year was by far their best. The way they connected with people, they made more revenue than ever before. They had more of a buzz on this, and it's an old school stand where they meet people, they speak, they network. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, people, there is a return to real life almost. You know, and then, you know, social networks are becoming increasingly toxic. People are more aware than ever of the limitations of the online world, and they're returning to IRL, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. In just smaller spaces, I think that's why we're seeing social more as an open door. You need that. You need to connect with them somewhere on open social, and then direct them or get into those smaller niche conversations where they're really going to value somebody's opinion, because it won't be written by AI, or it won't be, you know, paid for, which I think we're just seeing too much.
I was just saying, I got an email today we've got an email from Adweek, one of the country's top marketing titles, and it started, in fact, I've said it around my team, and it started, in this fast-paced digital landscape. I was like, seriously, you can't do the email without using AI. Everybody, and then it had an M dash in it. I was like, this is shocking. Digital landscape. We all had that when ChatGPT first came out, and now
in fact, when we used to talk about social media, I think that was in this fast-paced social media landscape in 2006. I'm
lucky enough to have had social ninjas on our team back in the early 2000s.
And social media rock stars.
Social ninjas.
Yeah.
Social media rock stars was the worst. I hated that.
Social rock stars was awful.
Yeah.
And they'd sit like in a different room and be like the cool geeks that we'd understand.
Totally.
Yeah.
So this show's all about mistakes and fuck ups, and you've shared a few in the briefing notes, and one particularly, and we'll dive into a few of these, but one grabbed our attention regarding somebody called Nick. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh gosh, yeah. This was my first agency, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, I won't say a surname, so we don't know. But we used to work on a whiskey brand, and it was a really great, small creative agency where everybody's friends. There's a lot of laughs, a lot of ribbing. We thought it'd be really funny one day, because he used to always get at me for attention to detail, ATD, that we'd put Nick Smiles into the terms and conditions and see if he actually read it. But then obviously running around like headless chickens, completely forgot, and it actually went to print like that.
Right. Nick Smells, but where did that go? It didn't go on the billboard, did it?
No, the billboard was a different mistake. No, it just went in across all major press.
Yeah, just the national press. And I won't say what brand it is, but it's one of the big single malt whiskey brands, isn't it? That you would absolutely recognise.
You've heard of it.
Did the client notice or flag it?
No.
So maybe the client doesn't have a good attention to detail either.
No one's got attention to detail, have they?
Well, that was our big the Land Rover one, which was a big. It was a 96 sheet, and it went across other big posters as well. But it was economy, but it was spelled economy, And it's such a small thing. And 12 people signed it off because it was 6 people from the agency and 6 people from the client, and no one noticed. But it wasn't until it's in a 96 sheet. And then I swear it's taller than me.
Oh, God.
And my client just sends me a photo going, uh-oh. And I was like,
What it's interesting you say that as a mistake, because that, you know, if you look at people talking about distinctiveness, there's ad campaigns now where they're saying that we've spoken to numerous behavioral scientists where if you change a letter, you make it that people are actively making spelling mistakes in their ads because it makes them more memorable. So you should have had that in your back pocket, Lucy, because you could have said, it's made it more distinctive and more memorable. My campaigns, you know, there's actual behavioural science behind that. It's done on purpose.
Back rationalisation. Very good.
I would say for that audience, the Land Rover fan base is not in for the I've heard of people doing that though on their social posts now, so that it doesn't look so it looks more personally written. And
they outperform in terms of engagement. If you do, just to check, where did economy or economy, however you spelt it, was that in the main header or the body copy of the?
No, it was the terms and conditions, but when it's a 96 sheet, it literally is about 6 foot tall.
You can't really hide when it's a 96 sheet.
Yeah, we've had one of our clients actually on the pod. We've probably had 3 clients on the pod in the 3 years we've been doing it, and she had an event down in the Excel, and they produced a £65,000 event exhibition stand, and it had and they were a software manufacturer, producer, and it was massive, and they'd got the word software instead of software, and it was on every single side of it, all 4 sides, and they had the central main one, and she said she spotted it as soon as she got there, and she'd signed it off. And I said, well, Will and I were like, well, did you tell anyone? Your boss was there, everyone was there. She was like, no, I did the honest thing, and I buried my head in the sand and just squatted for 4
days. I got away with it until now.
Oh my gosh. It's just, you just feel so much happier and less stressed when you're working in digital, because if it is wrong, you can just take it down and change it. When it's printed on a stand or in a newspaper, you just can't, can you?
Yeah, it's there for the next 6 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we work in PR, so we have had things where, and that's the thing, like sometimes, you know, obviously PRs get there's a spelling mistake or something, or but we've had things like, we had one where somebody had sent we sent the press release, it wasn't us, it was us, we sent the press release, the journalist used the wrong, it was an Asian name, and they'd use another this is bad, they used another picture of another successful Asian person, but it wasn't him in business, and put it alongside as if he was quoted, and it was the journalist or the editor's fault who hadn't done it. And so we had to ring them up, but obviously that was in print, and they changed it online, but they couldn't change it in print, which was a national newspaper. It was pretty awkward, because obviously, like, they didn't do it on purpose, but it's like, it's a little bit on the edge of that, because you just thought, oh, he's successful Asian business person. So yeah, you get everybody everywhere makes mistakes. That's why we started a podcast about mistakes, right? Everyone makes them everywhere. So, you know, that's what makes us human. Even AI makes.
It's just learning, isn't it? It's just how you learn.
Good theory.
You'll check your typos more.
Yeah, I think I do think the roles where they haven't been right, or we've been tried to be forced to do things that we don't think is right, are the ones where you learn the most and the fastest. So those bad situations are they're funny ones mostly.
Yeah.
20 years later, they're really funny.
Yeah, but yeah, not the time. They're bloody awful.
Not the time. You know.
So you're like you do growth sort of marketing, right? So now that differs from, how do you be completely laser sighted on growth? Because everybody wants to grow a brand. You don't work in marketing if you don't want to grow, right? So how does that differ?
I say it's mainly focused. It's such a funny word, isn't it? Because it can be used for so many people can say they work in growth, from sales to I don't know, even coaching or something. It really is. It's that stage of business that we work with where they've got product market fit, or they're getting close to, but they really need that product market fit. their focus and all their business goals is getting to the next stage of growth, so they get the next funding or they get the next level. And that is why everything we do has to be commercially led. And it not necessarily short term. We don't really do quick wins. We're not, if you need, to fill up your pipe in 30 days, you don't go to us, you go to a media agency or a lead agency or something like that. But really has to be about how are we going to get you from stage B to stage C, or, so that is why we focus on growth, because it has, and we often, because the majority of our clients are B2B tech, it's also really working in partnership with the sales team. Much more now, sales and marketing in B2B are becoming one team, especially at this stage, or all reporting into one CRO. And we need to work in partnership, because it's that, marketing doesn't stop as soon as the leads come in, and then it takes sales, and then it goes customer team. Marketing's all the way through.
Something you talk about as well is and I think, marketers, PR people, whoever's listening to this will recognize this, how to talk so the rest of the business listens. So that's presumably about, getting a seat at the top table, having the ear of the C-suite. How do you do that? Is it about demonstrating a great ROI from and impact from what you're doing, or is there another way?
So I do think this is one of the biggest jumps any marketer makes. A junior marketer and a midweight marketer are very comfortable talking around marketing metrics, website visits, conversion rates, ad spend, CTRs, and what they need to get to that next stage, to get into that sort of management team position. They really need to be able to understand, one, how does that ladder up for business growth? And then also, what do other teams care about, and what's their OKRs, what's their objectives, and how can they talk about what they're doing so they understand? A lot of what marketing is doing, unless it's clearly explained in more common language, people just don't get.
Okay, so there'll be midweight marketing managers listening to this thinking, okay, yeah, I'm great at the metrics piece, but I need to start demonstrating growth. Is it as simple as that? I mean, it can feel quite daunting, can't it? Trying to completely change your mindset and then trying to have those big strategic conversations with the board.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily want to do that jump from being very insular within a marketing team straight to talking to the board. But what we often, in some companies, you'll have cross-functional teams. So you're naturally working with the product team and the sales team and the customer team. But in others, what I would suggest is just going and talking to them and asking to have a cup of tea, whether that's online or in the office, but really just understanding what their focus is and what's worrying them and how that's going, and just thinking about and really understanding what you're doing, even if that's quite a junior stage, that you're very much on the delivery at the end of the campaign planning, really understanding how that is laddering back up to the business objectives and starting to be able to talk about that. And then when you have that opportunity, whether that's in like Friday show and tell or whatever that is, really trying to talk about it in those terms. But it'll make it easier once you have, not necessarily friends, but colleagues and people that you talk to, and a clearer understanding and a clear dialogue with those other teams. Somebody once talked about it as the one team, and the one team is that senior management team. And once you get to that senior level, you are in your marketing commercial team, but you're also within that one team. So you need to be able to have both levels of conversations. And in that same way, you need to be able to communicate. You'll see it as CMO, you should be able to communicate what is happening on a business level down to your team, so that they understand why they're doing things and the importance of the tasks that they are carrying out.
How many hours a week does a fractional CMO work then for it? Is it like a day a week or something?
Completely depends, from a couple of hours to, some people will talk about fractional CMO as someone that's coming in for a short period of time. So it might be that they're full-time for 3 months. And for the way our model is around half a day to a day a week, but that is because you'll never just work with one person, you'll work with sort of 4 to 5 people because it's all the different skill sets.
Sure.
1 hour a week. I'd like to do that. That sounds like quite a good gig. What? £1,000.
Come in and give your
£1,000. Yeah, exactly. Open my laptop and that's it.
So you also mentioned that you forwarded a client invite with a message that wasn't meant for them. I think a few of us have done that, where we've sent emails to people that we shouldn't have done by accident. What happened there then?
So I didn't realise that if you send forward on a calendar invite, the response goes back to the initial sender. So we were it was a different creative agency, still making mistakes. And one of our clients just felt like they weren't really getting much creative love. It was all very much, they weren't the most important brand in the agency. And so I forwarded on this invite to the creative director and just said, oh, they need a bit of creative director loving. Can you, they're a bit grumpy at the moment. And thankfully, he replied going with, oh, if I have to, you can buy me a pint or something to that effect. And then the client forwarded it on to me and went, oh, is that how I'm feeling?
But at least,
oh God,
I mean, there's probably hundreds of people thinking, hang on a minute, if they forward that on, does that get seen by people doing that right now going, oh my God. And your message is tame compared to, so it depends on what the person you.
That could have actually worked in your favor because, you're, but yeah, that's a bad thing, isn't it? Yeah.
The poor account exec trying hard to get the senior people involved. Yeah. No, don't you think it went down very well?
It didn't go down very well. I mean, grumpy, I'd be like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, daily.
Work harder. My agency needs to work harder. That's what everyone says, isn't it? And oh my God. Yeah. So where do you think the future of fintech is then at the moment? Where's it going for the 2026? Where do you reckon we are with it?
I think it'll be really interesting to see how people are coming back to, from a fintech point of view, how people have gone from being so excited about all these tools and then the talk about super tools and then actually going back to really understanding what is right for them. So what we're seeing now is not about one app for everything. We're seeing it's one app for parents with a child between 1 and 2. Something very specific. And I think that is how it's going to go. It's so with, back in 2018, it took a lot of money and a lot of effort and a big team to be able to build anything. Now we're seeing it being so easy to create an MVP, prove a bit of growth, then show some activity and start. So I think what we'll see is these multiple apps for specific audiences that are really starting to grow.
But do you think, because there's a big thing with AI, vibe coding, all that sort of stuff, which is probably the businesses that you're seeing, is there not? And there's also the big SaaS apocalypse that they're talking about. The fact that if you're a big, bona fide, safe in the market SaaS product, you've been going for 20 years, 15 years, whatever. Now there's all these guys that just whoop, up the pop from nowhere, and within 2 months there's something that's on the market that's better than you, cheaper than you, and more agile than you. Do you think that's a threat, or do you think they'll just all evolve and it'll be fine?
I think from a fintech point of view, because of the regulatory nature, nothing's ever going to get approved by the FCA that is vibe coded.
Good old regulatory. All the fun away.
So I think we're pretty safe there. Yeah. I think the mass market always moves slower than we think it does. I think there are the early adopters that are all using Claude Cowork to already run a lot of the OS of their businesses, and so some of those tools will miss out. And I think in the longer term that is a problem. But I don't see, a mass exodus in the next 6 months, because we're still, everyone's still testing and learning, aren't they? I think there'll be that small percentage that are really learning and building and wanting to and testing, but really that mass market, especially when you get to enterprise, trying to change that juggernaut and to change software that's being used by thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of employees or customers isn't a quick fix. Isn't going to be, they're not going to take on that new app that nobody's quite sure about and there's some security risks. They're going to keep with the Salesforces and everybody else of this world for now. Maybe not in a couple of years' time, but for now.
Interesting, you mentioned Claude Cowork. Did you see that the CEO of NVIDIA said that OpenClaw is the biggest app and the fastest downloaded app and biggest app since ChatGPT, and they're saying it's the new ChatGPT, NVIDIA is. So, and that is essentially a Claude Cowork with no guardrails, which is just, you can use it, but you're not sure what it's going to do and whether it's just going to go off on the internet and share all your details and share all your files. So you need to be really careful. It's a fascinating time for tech and software right now, isn't it?
And the risk is huge. So we use it across everything, and it's really changed the way in which we work.
Cowork.
But Cowork actually in the last couple of weeks has changed how we're operating as an agency or as a company.
How are you using it then? In what respect?
My virtual CFO that tells me what I need to know about my time and my hourly rate and my everything else. As my content calendar and my reminder of everything. My organizer it's organized all my files and all my folders to name them and to so many cool things, and I'm only just scratching the surface. Is that
your hot tip then? Everyone needs to get Claude Cowork.
Well, I'm sold already when you said virtual CFO.
Well, I was just thinking for you and your bloody calendar. Well,
that would be handy as well. Yeah. And today's been no exception, Chris.
Yeah, but I do think everything's changing, isn't it? Like now, Claude's just come out with that, and then OpenAI will come back with something, and it will all be a jostle to the top. But I do think there's a really big issue that we're talking to a lot of our clients about is everybody can vibe code, and that's fine if it's just an MVP and it's just a cool tool or something. But as soon as you've got client data in it or personal data in it, you need to be putting that risk around. You need to be really testing and making sure that you're not about to get sued for millions, because I don't have that insurance level.
Yeah, true. We ask this to everybody that comes on the show. You've been on the show now. If you were us, who would you invite next to be on the show and why?
Ooh. So, maybe Kylie Osman-Holm. She's a CMO that works across lots of D2C brands. She's really awesome as a person and she makes me laugh a lot. But she also just works across some really cool brands and has had so many experiences.
And so, Lucy, how can people get hold of you if they want to get hold of you and use your CMO services? I'm
on LinkedIn. I hang around on LinkedIn quite a lot. So you could just look me up, Lucy Woolfenden, or our website's a Scale Up Collective. So you can also go on there.